Can you think of a single more researched or more effective supplement or nutrient, quote unquote, than creatine for humans? I can't really.
No, probably not, because it's been studied for decades, like 50 years. And it's consistently shown significant increases in muscle strength, muscle mass, particularly supplementing around the time of exercise and around 3 to 5 grams per day. What's so cool, what's so interesting is that there's a 7-fold difference in regards to how much creatine phosphate gets stored if you take creatine around the time of exercise versus not. It's a 7-fold difference. So
wow.
if you want to get a 7-fold increase on the benefits of creatine, don't take it while fasting or before bedtime. You take it around the time of exercise, particularly post-exercise. And that's not even counting the 50 to 60% increase that you'll see when you also take it with carbohydrates as well.
Okay. So the protocol for creatine could be 3 to 5 grams per day plus carbohydrates in that 1 hour window after exercise.
Yeah, ideally too, with about 30, 40 grams of protein as well will help with the insulin release and help with the creatine being stored.
And we can just begin the conversation about hydration. How much fluid would you take that with? Or isn't this hydration kind of an important thing to consider here too?
Yeah, it is. So anecdotally, and also clinically, creatine monohydrate definitely increases the water content of the muscles, like the intracellular water content. So you have to increase your intake of water and electrolytes when you start taking creatine. Otherwise, you're going to sort of dehydrate other parts of the body.
Okay. And so this is something that I've thought about a lot. Like, to get 5 grams of creatine per day from food, it's not that easy. I mean, perhaps if you're in a tribe and you have a huge kill and you're eating, I mean, when I calculated it, it was like over 2 pounds of meat per day. So like 2.1 or 2.2 pounds of meat to get 5 grams of creatine per day.
Yeah.
So I think most people are not eating that much meat. Some people listening to this who are large humans or who are kind of interested in this hyper carnivorism, or I definitely have met both men and women who consume 2 pounds of meat per day. But I think a lot of people are not getting this much creatine per day. My perspective, or what I'm aware of, is that if you do a loading dose of creatine of 20 grams a day, you can saturate the muscles in 5 days.
Yeah. And
correct me if I'm wrong here. And then if you do 5 grams a day, it takes around 20 to 30 days to saturate the muscles. Is that right?
Yep, it takes about 4 weeks. Yep.
4 weeks. Is there, like, at what point does it sort of not reach saturation? Do you have any data on this or any sense? Like, if somebody's getting 3 grams of creatine per day, which is probably more reachable for most of us from food, can we extrapolate and say maybe 60 days, like 2 months to saturate the muscles? Or, I wonder, like, what the flux is of creatine in versus out.
Yeah, we don't know what the threshold is for creatine phosphate storage and what total creatine we can get the muscles and brain to. But based on some good data combining the precursor to the formation of creatine with creatine, which dramatically increases the storage of creatine phosphate compared to just creatine alone, like around 8-fold difference. It seems like there's a lot of room to play with in regards to how much more you can increase your creatine phosphate stores
through supplementation, through post-exercise window, through carbohydrates, both protein, through all the things to optimize it.
Correct. Yeah.
Interesting. So I'm thinking for myself, maybe this means that my exercise is usually a morning surf. And when I come back from my morning surf, I usually have a glass of raw milk with some honey. So I'm getting carbohydrates, I'm getting protein. If I wanted to get more protein, I could put a little creatine in there and get the protein, the carbohydrates, the creatine, and do it all together. I mean,
yeah,
I'm thinking out loud. Hopefully that helps people translate what it looks like for them. I mean, chocolate milk has been studied as this great ergogenic aid post exercise. I wouldn't necessarily do chocolate milk with sucrose. I'd rather do raw goat's milk with honey, but it's kind of the same thing.
Yeah, totally. I know, like, everything gets a bad rap, and there's not necessarily bad foods, although I would disagree there are, but people say there are only bad diets, right? But yes, if you time more refined carbohydrates specifically in a post-exercise window, you can kind of get away with it much better
Interesting. I saw you post about drinking orange juice online.
Yeah.
And you said that you were drinking a few ounces of orange juice throughout the day. Are you using orange juice post exercise, or are you using it all throughout the day right now?
So it really depends on my activity level, but yes, always after post exercise, like my body just craves some type of, glucose surge, and orange juice seems to be something that my body just craves. So that's why I started doing it. I started running a lot more, like 5 days a week. I'd run 1 to 2 miles a day. When you deplete your glycogen stores, I think you really start benefiting when you start doing that timed carbohydrate intake to replenish them. My cognition is so much better when I have a few ounces of orange juice, 2-3 times a day versus not. My mood is better. So there's definitely something at play here, and it comes down to the whole low carb. If you're inducing a low carb state because your activity level is going up, then you have to sort of match your intake now. Otherwise, you're going to start seeing your health decline.
Yeah, that is something that I learned firsthand, and it's been difficult to find the best way to communicate. I think because so many people started following me when I was strictly ketogenic and carnivore, and now when I talk about carbohydrates, I get a lot of pushback, especially on YouTube. There's just this strongly dogmatic, and I appreciate passion. There's a strongly dogmatic community on YouTube that just can't seem to wrap their heads around the notion that carbohydrates could be beneficial for humans. So I don't know if you know this or not, but on some of the carnivore or keto forums, people thought that your account was hacked when you said that you were drinking orange juice.
I did see some comments like that. It's just like April Fool's joke or something people were saying.
Yeah. Why do you think? So how do we help educate people here? Like, why do you think people have so much trouble wrapping their heads around the benefits of something like orange juice?
Yeah. I think because
how do we enlighten them?
There's two camps, I feel like. So
yeah,
when you have sort of like a more sedentary, low carb fasting camp, right? That works better. And then when you become more athletic, when you start running more, when you start working out more, you start getting that 6-pack, you start appreciating the benefits of carbs. So there's two camps, and I've sort of switched more to an active, much more active person. And now I'm definitely more pro carb because carbs are going to benefit me versus they probably weren't as beneficial when I was not as active. I was doing more of more longer intermittent fasts, things like that. So it's almost like be sedentary and eat less carbs, or be active and eat more carbs. And I prefer the latter. I prefer being more active and integrating more